Are you looking at relocating to Toronto and you want to know what the good, the bad, and the ugly of living here is? Well, in this video, I'm covering off some of the pros and the cons of living here in Toronto. And if you stick around to the very end, I have one that's right down the middle. I'll let you decide if it's a pro or a con, and we're getting into it right after this. Hey, what's going on? My name is Brad Gates with Right at Home Realty, and I'm a local realtor here in the Greater Toronto Area. If this is your first time to my channel or watching any of my videos, be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell. That way you're notified each and every time I do post new videos. These videos help uncover what it's like to eat, sleep, play, live, everything right here in the Greater Toronto Area. On top of this, the occasional time I will go on to a live video on YouTube where it's a complete question and answers that pretty much anybody who subscribes does get notified of that. So that way, if you have any questions in what it's like to live here, or even real estate related questions, whatever you got, these lives will give you an opportunity to ask those questions. I have people reaching out from all over the world, and I absolutely love it. So if you are looking at relocating here, you can call, text, email, send the carrier pigeon, whatever is easiest for you, and I'm here to make your move and relocation go so much easier. In this video, I'm going to be covering off the pros and cons of living here in Toronto, and if you stick around to the very end, I'm going to have one that is right down the middle, and I completely will let you decide if it's going to be a pro or a con. Let's jump right into it. Well, we'll start with the cons because I've always preferred the bad news before the good. So for the first con, it's traffic. If you drive, it can be brutal. So Toronto is an area where you can be an hour to get to Toronto. So if you're in Toronto and you need to get somewhere else within Toronto, it can take you over an hour to get there with rush hour traffic. The Gardiner Expressway is bad. The Don Valley Parkway is bad. 401 is bad. 427 is bad. So you get my drift. All of the highways and even within the downtown core, the side streets, the traffic is just really bad, and it's just because of the concentration of people who are living here. On the flip side to this, you can get around without a vehicle. In fact, tons of people living in Toronto don't even own a vehicle, and that's mainly due to the TTC, which has streetcars, subways, and buses. And then if you needed to get outside of Toronto, then you have the GO train, which can get you pretty much everywhere. And then you also have the Via Rail, which is another option. It's more expensive, but it's faster and it's more luxurious. Our second con is house prices. So Toronto is the second highest in Canada, and they're just slightly behind Vancouver. The prices will continue to rise because if you kind of look at the average within Canada, probably other parts of the world, probably the whole world, house prices on average every 10 years kind of seem to double. The only exception to this was in the 1988 housing crash here in Canada. That was when I was like 4 years old, so I wasn't affected by it, but it is something that my parents had kind of talked to me about. And just as an example of what I can share about this, when I first moved to Oshawa, my neighbor, he was somebody who bought that house in Oshawa in the 1960s, bought it from the builder, and he had a toss-up between spending $40,000 in Toronto or $26,000 in Oshawa. And he opted to come to Oshawa for $26,000. And if you're going to go on a comparative basis, that same house in Toronto that he could have gotten for $40,000, which back then was a lot of money, would be like way over $1 million, where the house in Oshawa is sitting and valued in and around like $600,000. So that just goes to show you that that compounding effect of house prices. So as high as the house prices are here in Toronto, and you're going to look 20 years from now, I bet you're going to laugh when you see what the house prices are right now. Our third con has to do with Toronto not being the greatest for the nature lovers. So there's no surprise, outdoorsy types will probably struggle to fit in. There's not a ton of different things that you can do outside. There are varieties of parks, especially in the suburban type areas. Boating is an option within Lake Ontario, and then there's also the beaches. But if you're looking for rock climbing, camping, like that kind of outdoor stuff, you are going to be leaving Toronto to do that for the most part. The downtown core especially is green space challenged. As you're driving through there, you see tons of condos and huge office buildings, and then you get a little bit outside of the downtown core and you see a little bit of green space and parks, but there's not very much. Some options for the parks that you can go to is Trinity Bellwood Park, there's Allen Gardens, and then there's also High Park, which is it's an amazing kind of park to go to. We've been there a few times and the dog loves it, and it's just a nice little walking trail that you can go through, and there's different activities that they kind of run there. One thing to watch out for there is the Cherry Blossom Festival. It's Cherry Blossom Display, and it's every April to May, and it's just an amazing kind of thing to see there, especially when all the parks, all the trees that are there, the cherry blossom ones, that's when they blossom, and it's just definitely something that you'd want to check out. Our fourth con has to do with the temperature. So in Toronto, you have very hot summers. Most parts of Canada, you can get away with not having air conditioning, but in Toronto, it's kind of essential. With over 7,000 square miles of asphalt and glass, the glass is due to all of the apartments, condos, and office buildings. There is lots being absorbed. So a lot of heat is being absorbed into those things, and often it will overpower the breeze coming off of the lake. Our fifth con has to do with kind of developers ruining the waterfront. So most places, like if you're going to look at Chicago, they've really done a good job with developing the waterfront. So it's not just condos and skyscrapers and different commercial type buildings, where it's actually, they have stuff that you can do, which is good for pretty much everybody. So that's one thing where with Toronto, it's kind of like a lot of the prime waterfront land was just kind of sold off to developers, and it's kind of turned into just miles and miles of condos. It's great if you own one of those condos, but if you kind of live close to the waterfront, your views are obstructed, and it's just mostly condos that are there. There are a few different parks, especially like off Lakeshore, or you can go down to the beaches where, you know, you do have places to go to enjoy the waterfront, but the whole main strip of it, kind of in the downtown core, close to Spadina and everything, is just kind of like skyscrapers and condos, and it's just been really overpowered. Our sixth con has to do with daycares. So there's clearly not enough daycares in Toronto, and there is actually a wait list to get into daycare. And that wait list right now was about 1 year and 2 months. So what happens a lot of the times when people find out they're pregnant, that's kind of when they join that wait list for the daycare, so that they're not kind of stuck scrambling last minute, because it is hard to come by, and it's also expensive. It averages about $86 a day. Our seventh con has to do with an increased need for 2 and 3 bedroom condos and apartments. Most of what's available in the 2 and 3 bedroom are fairly old. Now, some of them have been renovated and are very nice, but it's either they are kind of old where maintenance fees are just ridiculously high at about $1,000 to $1,200 per month, or they're new and just super expensive where the price point is just making it not very affordable for a lot of people. So now it's time for the pros, which is the good news of Toronto, which I saved for last, because if you sat through all the cons, that means you're interested to see kind of some of the good things that Toronto has to offer. Our first pro has to do with the economic opportunity. So there are tons of jobs, and they are spanning most industries. So it doesn't really matter what kind of field you are in. You can come to Toronto, and depending on your qualifications and your experience, it is something that you can actually find a job with fairly easily. Other parts of Canada, per se, they might not have all of the different fields or industries. So if you're like specialized into one specific thing, it might be a challenge to find jobs, where when you come to Toronto, the job range is there, and it's definitely something that if you want your best shot at landing that job, it would be Toronto that you would come to. There's so many jobs in Toronto that a lot of people actually commute from outside of Toronto. So they are working in Toronto and living on the outskirts because just the house prices are kind of high. They can get more house for their money when they're going out a little bit. And they're just okay with that commute coming into Toronto every single day. Our second pro has to do with the endless amount of things that you can do here in Toronto. So if you're looking for the nightlife, Toronto has it. It's almost like a city that never sleeps. There are sporting events, so pretty much any major sporting event that you want to watch live you do have that opportunity. It's the only city in Canada that has a professional baseball team and a professional basketball team. Other parts of Canada has like the NHL teams, but also a soccer team. So pretty much any sport you're into, you can go in and watch live here in Toronto. Another cool thing is the Just for Laughs festival that happens. They're here in Toronto, and it's just something that people look forward to. The arts festivals are definitely something that if you're into the art scene or you're just looking for a Saturday night out during the arts festivals, definitely something to check out. There's a festival that comes to Toronto, and I can never say it right, but it's like Mooey Blues or something unique to that sense, where it's just a neat little festival that I went to once with my wife, and it was something that we enjoyed. It was definitely unique. Another option would be Toronto Island. You can go there, take the ferry into Toronto Island, and they have like the different park, and they have like a fair set up. It's just really, really unique experience to be able to go and check out. And there are so many other things that you can do here in Toronto that makes it definitely worthwhile for people. Even if you're just coming to visit, definitely something that there's tons of things that you can do. Our third pro has to do with multicultural diversity. So Toronto was actually ranked top in the world by the BBC for the most multicultural city, and it has over 230 different cultures that you can experience here. So if you are coming from different parts of the world, Toronto is definitely somewhere that you can come and you will fit in and not feel out of place. Our fourth pro has to do with the low crime rate. So Toronto is actually ranked as one of the safest places in the world. So their crime rate, they average it based on homicides per 100,000 people. And Toronto sat at 2.1 to 3.8, depending on the year type thing. So 2.1 or 3.8 homicides per 100,000 people. So when you're going to compare that to other cities, like I know there's some cities within the States that sits at about 20. So that just goes to show the low crime rate here in Toronto. And then it's also on the decline. So the more, and because it's averaged out, the more people that come here, even if the crime rate stays the exact same, will actually go down because there's more people to feed into that pool of people that they're averaging out against. Our fifth pro is airports. So Toronto actually has two of them, and everyone knows Pearson International Airport, which is at the 427, 401 type area. But there's also another airport, which is called Billy Bishop, which is in the downtown core of Toronto. So with that, you have two airports. Pearson International Airport will get you absolutely anywhere within the world. But then you also have the Billy Bishop Airport, which their main flyers there is Air Canada and Porter Airlines, that can pretty much get you to different places within North America. And it's probably quite a bit cheaper than if you were to fly out of Pearson. And it's mainly because of the fees that the planes have to pay to land or take off, something like that. I don't understand it, but that's just what I've noticed, where a lot of people will prefer to fly out of Billy Bishop Airport because it's cheaper. And if you're in the downtown area, it's easier to get to. But if you are set at going to Pearson International Airport, there's actually a direct shuttle that will take you from Union Station right to Pearson International Airport. So there is a way that with no vehicle, you don't have to catch one of those airport limousines or a special Uber. You can get there using just the public transportation. Our sixth con has to do with no need for a car. So you can, depending on where you're going, you can walk, bike, take the TTC, which is either subway, streetcar, or bus. You have the GO train as an option if you're looking to go outside of Toronto. There's also the Via Rail, which will get you, outside of Toronto as well. It's more on a luxurious side opposed to the GO train. It's also more money, but it's definitely, it's a much faster drive or train ride. And then you also have zip cars. So that's something where a lot of condos have zip cars stationed at their, in their visitor parking or the resident parking. And it's just super easy to get a car. It's pretty cheap. You can take a car, a zip car, and it's like $50 for a few hours, where if you needed to go somewhere specifically, you have that as an option as well. Our seventh pro has to do with the food. It is absolutely endless. So pretty much self-explanatory. Whatever you want, you can pretty much get it in downtown Toronto, except for Michelin star restaurants. I heard about it a little while ago that Toronto didn't have a Michelin star restaurant. And when I was doing my research on Google, I couldn't find anything. I did some research, and yeah, so the Michelin star system has not made its way to Canada. There are pop-up restaurants that do happen where you have Michelin star chefs that will open pretty much like, you know, a temporary type restaurant. So I know there's one at Casa Loma where a Michelin star chef comes from, I believe it's Italy, and so they're very specific with their times and menus, and it's only like for a few weeks throughout the whole year. So that's the only downfall I would say with Toronto, but it's not even Toronto, it would be more of Canada as a whole. You also have the international grocery stores. So Toronto has, because of so much multiculturalism, it is fairly easy to find some of the different ethnic type foods that outside of Toronto you might have a hard time finding. Because we are so diverse and multicultural here, the grocery stores have become as well. So depending on what you're looking for, you can probably find it in Toronto. With some help from Google, they'll definitely direct you into the right direction for that. Now, for the one that's right down the middle, it has to do with bike lanes. So this is something where Toronto has bike lanes, and you can see when you're driving through, quite a few cyclists actually using those bike lanes. The reason I left it at the end, down the middle, is because if you are a motor vehiclist, you might not necessarily like the bike lanes. Now, if you are a cyclist, you're going to love the bike lanes. The only downfall with bike lanes is it's pretty easy to not see the cyclist driving. So it is something where if you are driving a motor vehicle downtown Toronto, you do want to be careful with that, because when you're making right-hand turns, for the most part, you might not see the cyclist that's driving through the bike lane right behind you. And that's definitely something that you want to be careful about. The positive of having these bike lanes is it's forcing people, not forcing them, but it's giving them the option to actually ride their bike to work, which saves on all of the cars that are onto the roads. So it's just making it more convenient for people, especially if you don't have a vehicle. You don't have to be so reliant on the public transportation. Well, that concludes the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. It lets me know people are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there. If you forgot at the beginning, subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell. But if you have already subscribed to the channel, don't click it again because it will unsubscribe you. And the important part about being subscribed is every time I post a video, you get notified if you've clicked that little notification bell. And that way you'll never miss a video. And then also when I'm doing my YouTube lives, it will give you a notification so you can hop on there as I'm recording live. And it's just set up as a complete question and answer type video. And it's just great because you might have questions that you don't necessarily want to directly call for, but you can just pop the question on there and then I'll answer it to the best of my abilities. I have people reaching out from all over the world and I absolutely love it. So if you are looking at relocating here, you can call, text, email, send the carrier pigeon, whatever is easiest for you, and I'm here to make your move and relocation just go so much easier. If you want to learn more, just continue watching some of my other videos depending on which city you're looking at, or watch all of the videos and then you can maybe pick which city is best for you. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you, and until next time.